Today's show is brought to you in partnership with Clearmotive Marketing. I co-founded this high-impact creative agency over 15 years ago. We deliver marketing that matters to our clients through our three-pillar approach. Number one, research that delivers actionable insights. Two, creative that attracts and engages new customers. And three, which is the backbone of our client success, the people, process, and technology that ensure efficient, consistent, high-quality results. We have great ideas and incredible creative, which is expected from a national agency. What makes us different is that we also simplify workflow, use technology to speed up projects, and recommend activities that achieve higher returns. There is a mountain of work that happens behind the scenes to produce what our clients take for granted, and that's exactly how we want it. Because great creative combined with well-organized operations is why we have such long-standing relationships. For example, Honda Canada has renewed their contract with us annually for the last 12 years. Our clients are market leaders, so they're incredibly competitive. Efficiency, performance, and consistent results are the only way to get to the top and to stay there. If you're not getting the consistent results you need, I can help. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or check out clearmotive.ca. Hello and warm Collisions YYC. Welcome to my guest morning, Mr. Rod Miller. How you doing, Rod?
I'm doing great, Tyler. Good to see you.
Rock and roll, man. So good to have you on. And this will be aired in the future, but it's Valentine's Day. So yes. Rod and I purposely, because we're going to talk about love at work, a weird, what? Two words that, do those words go together?
Yeah.
We will get into it. But you and I have been on the podcast before. That was so many lifetimes ago. I don't even remember.
Oh gosh, Tyler, it must be 6 years ago now. I think.
Well, we're only 5 years in, so we're probably about 3 or 4. You were early days. Early days. I know. Time is no time. Time is a construct. I don't know. We've chatted before, and here we're chatting again about it. Very different because you've, like so many of us, we've evolved. That's why I love having people back on the show and kind of touching in. You are, as we do, let's jump right into it. You're a partner at DeVille Partners.
Yes, sir.
What the heck's a DeVille Partners? Let us in the tent, and then let's launch from there.
Oh gosh, so it was last summer or last winter, actually, a year and a bit ago, that my wife and I were talking over the holidays, and so she's been a coach and consultant for a very long time, but probably upwards of 20 years, and we were talking about us kind of working together, and we felt that there were some opportunities for me to bring some things to the practice that we had that she had built, and so we decided to rebrand ourselves as DeVille Partners, which is actually a mix between our last names. My name is Miller and her name is Devin. And so we chose DeVille Partners, not even thinking about the coffee shop, although that's one of our favorite places.
If you're in Calgary, you can't help but come up occasionally, I'm sure.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I would advise that. We often hold our strategic planning meetings at
As you should. It's an excellent brand to associate with it. They do a fantastic job.
Oh, they do great coffee. Great coffee. Every shop is great coffee there. And so we decided that it was time for us to really think about bringing that to life. And so we're both executive coaches, leadership coaches, as well as leadership consultants and advisors. And I had been working on some things myself that I wanted to bring into a practice, particularly around board work and governance work. And so this was an opportunity to kind of take it holistically together and really bring to the market what we believe is some of the fundamental challenges and opportunities of leadership in the future, and some of the things we need to look at as organizations. And it really was kind of born out of the pandemic. The pandemic was this thing that just this catalyst of an event. And I thought, I saw this world of leadership changing. And so we decided, hey, let's bring some things forward. We've got some models that we do and some things that we work on, and really kind of bring it to bear for the clients that we get to serve. And so that's what we've been doing for the last year and a bit. And it's been it's been huge fun. And as the Gallup survey says, you have to have a best friend at work. And so I have a best friend at work. I get to work with my wife every single day. Is it hard? Yeah. But it's probably one of the most fulfilling things I've gotten
is she your boss? Do you report to her? Is she your boss?
No, we're partners. So.
Okay, all right. If I asked her, would she say the same thing, Rod? I'll reach out to her after. Like, so Rod said. Hey,
but I got to tell you though, she does have the bigger office in the home, so she's just across that wall over there.
I see. Okay, square footage. Square footage matters.
She's got the biggest office. She's got the sitting space, and so it's like, yeah, that's her place, and I'm stuck here in the bedroom with all of my toys and trinkets.
She did have 20 years. She did have 20 years. You joined the team. Yeah, so I appreciate it. We could do a whole podcast about working with your spouse, but we're not going to do that podcast today.
We'll do that third one. That'll be the third one.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's right. Absolutely. So talk to me a little bit about leadership coding, executive coaching. It's around. It's common. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of great things. Yeah. When it talks about the thesis or the core belief, you talked about the opportunity and the catalyst, which was COVID, which really allowed you to say, hey, there's a real value because the apple cart got flipped over on all of us, whether we liked it or not. No matter how stable we thought our apple cart was, someone came and kicked it over. When you think about the value you bring, and maybe putting on my marketing hat, but more so just what is the thesis that you bring to the table around that? If I was looking in going, oh, I'm not leadership and executive. Okay, I see that all over the place, but everyone has a bit of a different slice at it, which is what I love so much about this topic.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm going to go take us back to the pandemic and what the pandemic actually catalyzed in work and why leadership is so important today. And when I think about it, we were all, to your point, at one point, and really 4 years ago, we're coming up on 4 years now, we were at a point where we all had to mobilize into a different way of working, right? We all had to do it. Whether you were an employee on the floor, an individual contributor, a leader, a CEO, whatever it was, you were catalyzed into this future of work that we had been talking about for a long period of time and thinking about things like, how is digital transformation going to change how we work in the world today? And all these things were happening. Well, what the pandemic did was the catalyst that forced us into that new state of being of what we call work now or work of the future. And so as I began to look at that more and more, and the experience that I had being president and CEO of an organization, needing to lead my organization through that, and whether that was on behalf of the board, on behalf of my team, or on behalf of the member community that we served, whatever it was, I now was put into this position of leadership where I needed to lead my organization through the unknown. I had no idea what it was going to be like. I had no idea that it was going to be 2.5 years. I thought, well, maybe we're out a couple of weeks, we'll figure it out. And it went on and on. And so as I emerged from that and began to realize I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only executive or leader who was dealing with the unknown or who dealt with the unknown. And that unknown brought to light a number of really important things for us as human beings. Is things like, am I doing the work that I want to do in the world? I've had a number of conversations with CEOs and other C-suite executives and VPs that say, am I doing really what it is that I want to do? Am I serving my purpose or whatever that might be? And so all of a sudden now we're kind of thrown in this environment of questioning what we thought work was and the meaning of what work is for us as individuals. And so in my role, it was part of my own self-discovery to say, if I'm struggling with this and I'm trying to figure this out, then I'm sure there are others who are in the same boat. And so I decided that my next step joining DeVille with my wife was going to be bringing that to bear for leaders who are challenged by what leadership means to them based upon the models that they were led by, because we lead like we were led. Often the example of leadership for us is who led us, and it could be good and it could not be good. And so that's how we often enter into leadership. And so I wanted to have an impact on leadership and really say to leaders today, we can design the life that you want. We can create the life that you want that's centered around work and life being integrated together, because that's been the struggle, is how do we integrate these two things together? How do we live fully together, fully with those two things together as leaders, as husbands, as wives, as brothers, as fathers, as sisters, as whatever? How do we live that way with deep authenticity? And so that's what I brought to my coaching practice, is a deep, deep desire to help leaders thrive in work and life today, and to help give them the tools that they need to be successful in whatever aspect of their life that they want to be successful in. And I see it as an enormous privilege. And it's the experience is built on theory and practice of being a certified coach. So it's using
combined with also being in the chair. You had a lifetime of being in that chair as well, and there is a relatability sometimes that I can knowing how to coach is one skill, and there's no question that to be undervalued. But also going, I get it. I've been there. Like there is a relatability. I'm curious just to pick apart, and I've had different conversations where a lot of times during COVID, when leaders were putting all of their focus into making sure that they were taking care of their teams, their teams have what they needed, did it create a little bit of a delayed wave for the leaders themselves who didn't have time to actually go, hey, I'm also having a shitty time right now. Like this also sucks, but I don't have time to do that. Like, and I feel that, and not that one had it good and one had it bad, but I know a lot of leaders, they're like, all of a sudden when they did get to take their head up, it was like, oh wow, like I wasn't having my needs met either, but I was so focused on the organization and so it felt like there was a bit of a delayed wave for some of the more senior roles that I didn't have time to feel, as my friend in the military says, like, Tyler, we didn't have time. No one asked us how we felt. We just had to fly the mission. Yeah. I feel like there was a bit of that going on through COVID for a lot of senior leaders.
Yeah, 100%, Tyler, 100% that, as a leader, we all kind of suffered too. Like we went through, and I do consider it to be a traumatic event. I think that, we were all trying to navigate the unknown and the stresses all around that. And then finally you get a chance to lift your head up and go, okay, we got a bit of a breather room. And then you realize that you're not okay. Like as a leader, your health and your wellness is no longer has had an impact here, has had a negative impact. And so, one of my philosophies is that in order to lead well, we must be well. And it's not,
put on the oxygen mask first, right?
Right.
A lot of us don't do that.
Take care of yourself. Like the best thing that you can do for your team today as a leader is make sure that you're taking care of yourself first, because then you can lead effectively and have impact in the organization. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're burning out or whatever it is that's happening to you, it's really difficult to give that to your team. So I think my philosophy and my learning out of this and what I share with people is that it's okay to put yourself first as the leader when it comes to your wellness, because it does a number of things. It takes care of you, first and foremost. It takes care of your family. And it also sets the example for others to follow. If I have boundaries around my day, if I say to you, oh yeah, don't send me an email on a Sunday afternoon, that's your day off, yet I'm sending emails to you because I'm so busy, the message I'm sending to you is that doesn't really matter. You need to respond now, even though that's not the message. So I think we need to lead from the perspective of within and say, what are the behaviors and the actions that I need to take as a leader that I want my team to emulate? It goes back to when we initially talked in the very beginning about, we lead like we were led. It's the models before us that have informed us as leaders going forward. So we need to change that and break that up a little bit. And doing things like putting boundaries in place and the behaviors that you want to exhibit and you have your team exhibit are important to make sure that we model.
How much of that, like leadership as an institution, and I'm using that as a term, not as a formal thing, but like lead like we were led, there's so much of, no, I understand all these things, but if you're going to be on the leadership team around here, the leadership team acts a certain way. They send this, we got no meeting Friday, but yet the leadership team seems to meet on Friday, like those types of things. And institutions, in my experience, they tend to want to protect themselves. They tend to want to insulate their own. Like, this is the way it's worked. This is if I follow this path. There's also this weird contract. If I act a certain way, because that's what I've observed, this is how I go up the ladder and this is how I move higher in an organization.
Yeah.
It's so easy for us to talk about breaking that paradigm. I do believe where the rubber meets the road, it takes a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of courage as a leader to do that.
I think that's one of the greatest things about leadership today is courage. It does take courage for us to break these models. And it does start at the top. Leadership starts at the top. It goes down through the organization. If you as a CEO or president of an organization are not exhibiting these behaviors, it's never going to happen within the organization. You may talk about it, but it's never going to happen because people would be afraid. That's not what the leader does. That's not what the CEO does. But if the CEO does it and the presidents do it, or the president does it and the vice presidents do it, that's how they live and breathe in the organization. That becomes the model that people tend to follow. But that also becomes the model for culture. And building culture.
Well, back to culture is not what you put on the wall; it's what people observe, right?
Yeah, right, 100%. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
It's but look, it's on the wall. I'm like, it looks a little dusty. Have you dusted it recently? Because I don't think anybody's reading it. I remember when we switched to full remote and we went on Slack and everything became very, very transparent versus like walking through the office and not seeing someone at their desk. You didn't know where they were. Maybe they're a doctor's appointment. I don't know. But all of a sudden Slack's like, hey, I'm going to a doctor's appointment. I'll be back. If you need me, I'll be there later. And I remember my own reaction to that the first few months. And I was like, oh, like I'm seeing these people like doing exactly what we empowered them to do. Like, hey, it's your, like our culture during COVID was make it easy, ... Make it easy to get your work done. Make it easy to spend time with your family. Make it easy to find the files you need. Like that was the culture we adopted of like, we don't know what we need to survive this, but let's make it easy for everyone to just show up as them, feel safe, ultimately get their work done and feel like they can perform, but still live their life, which meant if you need to take 2 hours in the afternoon, be accountable to your team. But if you want to do that work later tonight, like you do what you're an adult, you do whatever. Yeah. But it was hard as a leader to start seeing that and be okay with it. And I purposely started to go in because in Slack you can like and heart it, and I would heart it. I really wanted them to know that from a CEO's perspective, they trusted me and the leadership team that we were going to live our promise, I went out of my way, and it probably took me 3 to 6 months before I stopped getting that little feeling, that little gut kick that I would get about, you're not at your desk, you're not doing it. I'm like, it's bullshit anyways. But I had to change my behavior, and it was fun because it was in a clickable environment. So I could kind of measure my reaction and then choose how I acted next because it was in front of me on a screen. But it took a little bit of time. Like I was all for it, but then I had to feel it. And it was uncomfortable at first. It was uncomfortable.
Totally uncomfortable. I think that's, so going back to your kind of your comment in the beginning that you shared about, people kind of, going back to what was or what we're used to doing. And, there was this kind of, let's go back to the workplace, right? We're going to all come back to the workplace, or we're going to come back 3 days a week now in this box of 5. And that's how it's going to be. There's comfort in that. And there's comfort because we think we can control that.
It's an illusion, Rod. It's an illusion.
It's such an illusion. And when you
FYI, it wasn't working perfectly before, everybody. Just to be super clear, stop romanticizing the past.
Exactly.
You mean your culture that was borderline a train wreck that now you've romanticized as that was the good old days? I'm like, the good old days were seldom as good as they're made it to be.
We have to go back to the good old days.
Being cynical.
When 25% of the people were engaged, and now we have 18% of engagement. So we've got to go back to 25. What if we could go to 50? What if we could go to 75?
It didn't work. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, go on. I just find that so hilarious. I'm like, we're romanticizing. That's such a human. We're so human. We do that. It's so silly.
But I think
we all do it.
What you said is brilliant. And I think what when you said, you dove in and you took a chance and you realized as a CEO that, hey, this is kind of on me. And I get and it's self-awareness, it's EQ, right? It's my own self-awareness and self-management of the situation that, hey, listen, I could sit here and focus on what we call the outputs of hours, right? The output of having people come to a workplace and drive in for 8 hours a day to sit on video cameras, working with their colleagues, sitting next to them. I mean, I heard so many stories of that, of people going, I walked into the office when I went back to the workplace and I sat down in my cubicle to have a meeting with the person next to me.
And I put on my headphones. 100%.
And I put on my headphones, and I did that for 7 hours out of the day.
And we all went into our offices and closed the door. I've heard multiple stories like that. Multiple stories.
Or leaders, they just come in and they close their door. There's no connection. But you did it. You dove into the unknown and you blazed a trail for your organization that now feels a sense of comfort. Right? You've got it figured out, and you are about.
Always learning, though, to be clear. Always learning. Never figured out. That sounds fine. That sounded way too finite.
That particular situation.
Yes. A lot of things are working. And our team, we even changed our mission. It was to empower our team to deliver the marketing that matters to our clients.
Yeah.
And it's so subtle, but up to then, it had always been a client-first mission, never an employee-first mission. And people were like, oh, yeah, that's so obvious. I'm like, but saying it and then living it, it's obvious, but it's not. And it was so subtle. And for me, it was a big shift to empower our team. So then when we did our OKRs, which is how we do our planning, everything was about how we're moving obstacles, what technology is helping, what's hindering, where does our team feel that they need more. Everything was truly employee first, not just like, oh yeah, we really value our employees. Most people do, but we actually even put them ahead of our clients. Yeah. Which after 15 years or 13 years at the time, that was a switch for me. But what I saw came out of it, all of the actions that we took from an annual planning perspective got so much more weighted on our team, with the outcome being the client benefit, not the first goal. Yeah. And it's so subtle, but it made a huge difference. It made a difference in my mind as a leader. So I'll start there. But I watched the actions we took afterwards, and they changed. They absolutely changed.
Yeah. And I bet you when you take a look at the measurable results too of productivity, that the productivity numbers improved.
100%. Our billable, which is not a fun, no one loves tracking hours, but in the world of services, you track hours. Yeah. More importantly, our clients were happy. We got an onslaught of new projects. We were more billable. People were better utilized, but yet they were less stressed because they weren't commuting. We had a lot of team in Toronto. They were commuting an hour and a half each day. Yeah. So all of a sudden they're like, I don't mind working a little extra because 2 minutes after I close my computer, I'm with my kids. Yeah. Or I could have gone on mat leave, but I didn't have to because I was able to be there with my daughter and still work at clearmotive. So we had so many little wins that I would never have known about them until they kind of happened, right? Like you couldn't predict them. We did a thing like, what do you love working at clearmotive? And people were like, I love that I can do my laundry during the day. I love that my commute is the hallway. I love that I can drink my own coffee. Like not the things that typical, self-respecting CEO would ever put out, like, these are the benefits of working here, but it's actually what mattered to our people. Yeah. And it was a weird reverse exercise because it goes against everything I've ever read, but not really. I just finally understood it.
Well, I think, and I think what you're sharing is so powerful because at the heart of what you're doing as a CEO for clearmotive is you're caring for your people. Like genuinely, you're caring for your people. And that's related back to the conversation of love at work. And, when we think of love, love is just this deep affection for something or somebody, right? It's certainly there's interpretations of love, but at the core of love, it's having a deep affection for something or somebody.
Okay,
and so when we put our employees at the very center of our work, whatever that work is, whether you're a large, big company or you're a marketing firm or a not-for-profit, what we're saying to you is that I care for you. I care for your well-being. I care for who you are as a human being. And that helps that employee feel like they belong there. Okay, they see me, because at the end of the day, we all just want to be seen, heard, and understood, right? We all want to be seen for who we are. Who wants to come in and drive an hour to come and sit on a computer all day to talk with colleagues in the office in meetings when you can do it so differently today? Like, why would you do that? So when we create that environment of caring led through leadership, because I think that's part of the thread here in leadership development that's needed, is when we genuinely care for our employees, we create an environment where they feel like they belong, where they feel then like they can do their best work in an environment where they're seen, heard, and understood, which results in greater engagement, which results in better outcomes, ultimately impacting your culture. So I think that at the core of this is actually leaders who care for their people and their teams and for the company that they're in. And they live that every single day of their lives.
I'm just asking this for the sake of it. Does physical, it feels like physical location where your bum is doesn't really matter if you have that. Just to play the in-office, out-of-office, because that's not even the right question, but it's the question that gets thrown around.
Yeah, so I'm going to share with you more. I think of an opinion because I'd want to look into the data more. And I think the data is going to emerge on this more and more as we study it. But I think it actually doesn't matter. I don't think it matters today. I think it's in part because we're in a knowledge-based economy, and there certainly are industries where you can't have that, right? Where if you're on a manufacturing line producing office furniture, you can't have that same thing, that same way of caring, but you can care for your people. And I think that's the core of it, is when we care for our people, we create an environment of belonging. And if that caring looks like, hey, run your day the way that you need to run your day, we're going to focus on outcomes, not outputs. We're going to focus on what we need to do, and ultimately that's going to affect the clients that we serve or the communities that we serve, whatever that is. If that's our focus, we will then design our organization around that. Because I think what's happened is that we've all kind of just thought, let's just go back to what was the models of structure, right? The context of work that we have, which is often a place and a time and a day of the week. Let's break that open. And let's redesign work for what it is, right? It's outcomes, not outputs, not time, not hours. It's what do we need to achieve? Let people figure that out, guide them, train them, invest in them, obviously, but let them figure that out in a way that works for them. Hey, if I got to stop and throw in a load of laundry or walk down the street to pick my kid up from school, and it's going to take me an extra 20 minutes, that's okay. That's okay. That's all part of that work-life integration that we're seeing today.
What kind of skills does it take from an organizational perspective? Because I hear you and I couldn't agree more. We have the privilege being a knowledge-based company, but also we're very tied to projects. So there's very clear, if this project is successful at this stage, this is what needs to have been done. And the scoping and it takes a lot of work to do that. And I would argue that there's also a paradigm of like, we also in a world where we have more variables than we've ever had, where like, sometimes I don't know what success back to, am I doing activity or am I delivering outcomes? I guess just thinking about the paradigm of like, for that to be successful, the organization needs to be clear on the intended outcome. Does that just lead to shorter sprints, smaller, like, well, I don't know what the outcome is, but I know what Friday looks like, or I know what Tuesday looks like. It just takes a little bit more discipline to do that thinking than like, well, just go away and work and see what you come back with. That doesn't work in the environment that we talked about. So just thinking about what also needs to change organizationally, like the sprints, the scrums, the rapid fire, they're like, okay, by 2:00 this afternoon, let's meet and see where we've gotten to. Not like, well, I'll come back to you in a month and then be upset that you blew it somehow, but I didn't really tell you what it was supposed to look like. Yeah. Do you find that that's also a paradigm that organizations, they go, yeah, I'm in for this, but man, our culture of actually thinking through and maybe shorter milestones and being clear on deliverables, that sometimes is very contrary to a lot of organizations I've certainly had the privilege or not to work with over the years.
Yeah, I totally agree, Tyler. I think that organizations get stuck in structure. and we get stuck in ways of working in design that are a bit archaic today. I think of things like agility. How do you breed agility in your organization, and how do you breed agility in your leadership teams? How do you breed innovation and creativity in your organization, and provide an environment where people can bring ideas and concepts forward without the fear of any type of retribution or anything like that, where they can't, that environment of failure is welcome.
Of this right or wrong polarization. Like, we're really talking about psychological safety,
100%,
ultimately, at the end of the day. Yeah. And
100%.
I was talking to Jenny. Do you know Jenny Gilbert from one of their, Jenny's, sorry, we've had Jenny's, that's how we met, was through those crew. Okay, anyways, long
and we're going to see
Jenny
them next week, even though this podcast isn't coming out, we're going to see them all together next week.
That's right. I'm getting my keynote ready as we speak.
Yeah, me too.
But chatting with Jenny just around the simple, she goes, psychological safety from a concept, but ultimately it's about trust, right? Do you trust that person has your back, or is going to stab you in the back? Because sometimes you can trust that they're going to do the opposite as well, and just bring you down. And we've all read Pansy Lencioni and the 5 to If that trust doesn't exist at the base of the pyramid, what we're talking about here really kind of goes, that has to be the foundation, or it struggles.
There's no question, and Lencioni's work is so critical on this, is that trust is the foundation of it all. And we think back to the reason why we were slow in the transformation of work before the pandemic. It was because we didn't trust our teams to do the work without us being able to see them in an office-based environment. That was there was 2 reasons why. One was trust, and one was fear that the work wouldn't get done. Okay, well, we blew that apart during the pandemic. I mean, almost
within like week 3. It was amazing.
And the uptake in productivity within the first month was absolutely incredible. Now, there was boundaries that were, not set around that. People working outside of hours and so on, but that kind of tapered off.
That was an extreme event.
Yeah, it was. It's clearly an extreme, but we all went through it. And I think the model shows us that, hey, we can do that. You can trust us to get the work done, right? Don't have a fear that it's not going to happen. We've shown that for 2.5, nearly 3 years. So going back to what we think was working before without capitalizing on what's working today is, to me, kind of, it's the word that comes to mind is silly. Why would we do that? Like, it doesn't make good business sense.
That's an excellent business term that I think should be used more frequently in business. You know what? I love that's a silly approach. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
I love the paradigm, and it's still like the level of personalization, which I think is scary for big organizations, because we want to look at people at blocks of 1,000 or blocks of 100 versus like, well, Joe likes this and Ann likes that and someone else likes this, and that personalization, that this is allowed, but that accountability, it still means the right people and the right fit. Like being remote has become a hiring value proposition for us. It's amazing. And it's by default, but also we very much realize that people that are attracted are looking for a certain something, and they're also willing to accept other things. They know they're not going to be in person. They know they're not going to have that. They know they're going to have to probably communicate a bit more. They can't rely on the office drive-by for a briefing. They've got to put it in Slack or Asana. Yeah. I love this life it's created, and my acceptance is I might be better with the tools where before I might have not wanted to do that. I've just seen it. And I think that sometimes our last couple of hires, the number one question is like, any questions for us? You're not going to trick me and make me go back in 3 months. Like, they're so all in on it. And as the world moves away from that, the people that want it are going out and searching for it, but they also are they're looking for something different, and they're willing to accept something different too.
Yeah.
And I think that still is you're still hiring one person at a time, even if you need 1,000 new hires, which I know can be very overwhelming. Yeah. As a small company, we take it personally because it's personal. It is 100%.
Well, I think, Tyler, that's an absolutely critical point. As we have emerged from this, the employee-employer contract is now much more individual.
Yeah.
So it used to be pretty vanilla and pretty generic. This is the role what you did. Here's the job description, blah, blah, blah. It's now become what matters to me as an employee needs to matter to the employer. So if I'm wanting to work, 6 months out of the year and then take 6 months off, that's important for me. As an employer, can you adjust yourself to accommodate those type of things? Or can you create a work environment that really helps the individual shine and feel like they actually belong? That's complicated work. That's not easy work to do. That's HR's kind of going, I don't want everybody to be an individual. But if we can treat them in a way that they are, your individuality matters. Here's what we need to achieve as an organization. Here's the outcomes that we are going for. Here's the role that you play in doing that. Are you open to doing that and instilling accountability down the line to make sure that gets done? So it really speaks to how we lead today versus how we've led in the past. And this is the fundamental changes of leadership, right? The skills of leadership have fundamentally changed.
I love the concept, like, as I reach for my device that's always within hand's reach, like we live in a world that's personalized for us. My newsfeed and your newsfeed are different, even if we're on the same platform, because it's been personalized. So the argument that we are willing to accept anything less than personalization in any other aspect of our life, like that ship has kind of sailed.
Yeah. Well, and so when I think about
I'm special. I've been taught this for many, many years, Rod. And some managers are like, oh my God, don't hire that guy. He's special. I'm joking. Because that's the dichotomy in the paradigm that does unfold, right?
Well, and this is why I'm so poignant on the role of leadership. And so leadership down through the organization, through all levels, it really begins on the front line. So if you are managing and leading a team of let's say 6 to 8 people, which is kind of the ultimate span that we've identified in the literature, it should be no more than that or no less than that. You get a chance to build a relationship to care for 6 or 7 people in your organization. Now imagine if you and all the leaders that are peer to you and all the leaders that are above you do the same thing. Think about the impact that has.
It's a pyramid scheme of caring. I like it. It's literally a pyramid scheme, but everyone gets cared for, so it actually is good.
Well, I'm going to take that away.
That's not trying to minimize it at all. I'm picturing this pyramid of caring. It's a book. It's an article at least, Rod. You need to write it.
There we go. Maybe
are you building a pyramid of caring?
A pyramid of caring. Maybe I might take that away. That's an idea.
Please,
a seed to generate. But when we think about it, that's what happens. The accountability of results goes down through the organization, however that organization is structured. Mm-hmm. And so if you as a CEO lead that way and you're leading down that way, and then you're training your leaders to lead that way, that impact that you have, that one-on-one conversation at the lowest tier of your organization has an impact across the organization if done well. And I think that's the key, is how do we get leaders today to lead in the model of the future, not how we've led in the past. And that's the opportunity for organizations to create value, to create immense value.
I had a conversation. I was doing a strategy session with the venture capitalists recently. We all know venture capitalists, those blood-sucking vultures that they are. But this group is like, no, we don't want to invest in 22 companies and have 2 win and the other 20 fail. We believe that we can lift all of them by investing and actually caring about them. And the engineer in the room, who was the very logistical guy, said, he goes, Tyler, we don't do it because it's nice. We do it because it actually gets better returns. And if it happens to be nice, well, so be it. But it's actually financially a smarter decision. And he was and I'm picking on the engineers. He was so matter of fact. He's like, I don't do this just because I'm nice. I do it because I think it's actually better ROI for our fund and for our investors. And I hear you talk like this, the leaders that I know, they just miss it as fluffy and soft skills and all that. Yeah. Hey, gang. We're not promoting this because it's nice. We're actually promoting this because ultimately it actually drives better outcomes. Like, if we need a business case, I don't think it's that hard to prove.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So if we think about the stream here, so the stream is caring for your people, which results in creating an environment of belonging, which results in greater engagement of your employee. The outcomes are there in terms of results and productivity, right? It's very clear. The literature is very clear that if you have an engaged employee, they are 4.2 times as productive as non-engaged employees. And that's productivity, right? And so and those are results and those are outcomes. So yes, it is good business sense. Yes, it makes super good financial sense to make these type of investments in your people for the outcomes that you want to see, you want to generate. And then, okay, let's say, for example, that 75% of people are not currently engaged in their roles. How many of those people are currently underproducing, quiet quitting, as we called it, right? Underproducing, or out looking for another job.
The removal of discretionary effort, my friend in his HR has often called it. She goes, oh, quiet quitting, what a new phenomenon. She's like, no. it's a catchy. I am a marketer. I love a good catchy tagline, but.
Yeah, it is good. But think about the impact of that on an organization's
well, just dollars and you have 10 employees, you have 100 employees, you have 5,000 employees. Yeah. Like that number, it exaggerates from a inefficiency perspective.
100%.
Talk to me about like coaching a leader. So I love what you said, like the institution of we lead like we were led. Mm-hmm. And I'm a leader who's been around for a while or not. It doesn't. Is this? I don't want to play ageism here, but is there older generations and younger generations of leaders? Like I have an image in my mind when I think about the leaders that I grew up seeing, going, "Whoa, I don't think this is a good way to do it." I see younger leaders that are emulating. I see most leaders that are completely untrained, unsupported, and actually being a leader. They just got the role. They don't actually know how to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to jump in to make it an ageism thing, but how does an individual, like we talked about the benefits to the organization, I think it's a bit irrefutable, but how do I, the people listening, how do I go about breaking down some of my like, fluffy or it's not the way I was like, because I've got to get out of my own way a little bit to let this show up at work. And that's probably the real work that you do in the room, one-on-one, like literally head to head.
Yeah, so true. I want to share with you a story of when my first leader was years ago, and I'm going to call it decades ago, as you can tell by the gray hair.
Sure, yeah, experience.
And leadership then was conformity, is that you would conform to a certain type of person. You would exhibit certain behaviors. You would actually even dress a certain way, like your leader did, to show the organization that you wanted to be a leader. So that's just
that you were part of that tribe.
Yeah, you were part of that tribe, right? The tribe was, and it was an IBM type culture where you wore blue suits and white ties, or white shirts and ties and stuff. Well, we've gone so far, and so what I'm finding now is when I speak with leaders who are curious about their own leadership style, it often comes from what I used to do doesn't work anymore, and I don't know necessarily what to do. So there's this openness to begin to explore how their leadership style could evolve into something in the future. That's one aspect of it. So we get to work on that together. But then there is a demographic change. And I get to see it even in the instruction that I do in post-secondary with emerging and future leaders, is there are people who are now potential leaders who are more vulnerable. They just bring vulnerability as part of what they've grown up with. They bring vulnerability. They bring caring to the organization. What they don't want is to be stuck in an organization where that can't be them, where they need to be something else. And so I think we've got now 4 generations that are sitting in the workforce. And I remember clearly when I began teaching years ago, and this generation was emerging, and I thought, man, this group, we called them millennials at the time. I said, they're going to change the way we work, man. Like I could see it. And 10 years later, as they get into leadership roles, they've had a profound change. I think Gen Z is going to do the same thing as they emerge in leadership roles. They're going to have a profound change of work. So we're going to cycle through this on an ongoing basis. But I think at the heart of it is if a leader is thinking about their role as a leader and it's not working for them the way that they want it to, that's the opening to have a conversation about what it could look like to be a leader today. Because it is a different skill set. It's a very different skill set than what it's been before.
And are you seeing a wave? Are you seeing people that are like, I'm just going to ride this out and kind of get off the other end? Because I know a lot of people at the end of COVID, once they could take their head up in leadership roles, they're like, hey, this isn't me anymore. I'm not fulfilled for a variety of reasons. Also, just stage of life too, from that perspective.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about new generations are just bringing in new ways of looking at things because they can't help themselves. They're a different demographic. Yeah, they grew up with a different set of paradigms around. Yeah. What is demographics? The study of the future by predicting the future through understanding the past or something like that. I had a speaker all about demographics, and he's like, listen, even some of the hang on old strategies, they're already dead. And he said, he actually made us sit around the room from youngest to oldest. Yeah. And he's like, you grew up over here who are in control now. He goes, your ideas they're done. You just don't know it yet. He was really kind of funny that way. And he's like, there's a new wave coming in, to your point, with new different demographics who grew up with different paradigms and different beliefs. And he goes, it's just how the cycle has always changed, and it will continue to change. Yeah. And are some of those leaders just exiting stage left because it's easier than to kind of revamp my whole operating system, defrag my hard drive?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of both. I think certainly, there are leaders today who are it's time for them to leave, so they're leaving the workforce to do other things, just because they don't see this as part of who they are, so they just leave. I think that there are also other leaders who are very active in their own generation demographic to say, I do need to change, I do need to do something different, I need to look at leadership in a different way, and they're curious about what that could look like, for them. And I think that's an enormous opportunity for us to capitalize on. Is how do we really develop leaders of the future, regardless of what demographic that you come from? If you're willing to learn and try, that's kind of, to me, the foundation. Willing to learn and try. let's figure this out together. We're still trying to navigate it. We're still trying to understand it. We know that there are some key competencies that that leaders need to have today that are really important for them to be successful as we lead new generations. Things like vulnerability and empathy, building psychologically safe spaces, transparency and openness, and all those things that some leaders in the past may have struggled with. And I think that those type of skills, when we focus on developing leaders, we look at those skills of saying, hey, listen, can you be more empathetic? Here's how some things to consider. Vulnerability, being vulnerable at work is a huge opener because that breeds connection. We know that, right? Based upon a lot of the work that's been done. So I think there's a little bit of both. But to your point, I think it cycles and it transitions out. And I think there is an opportunity, though, for us to even think of that and say, when we make the investment in our leadership today around the type of leader that we want to have here, we can potentially generate a higher rate of return on that investment versus just letting it happen. So there's intention versus non-intention. And so if we intentionally want to rebuild leadership for the future, let's make that investment now, knowing that the payoff down the road is going to be higher.
This is an invest now, benefit later
approach. Yeah.
What do you see kind of in your optics around diversity? And that can be ethnic, that can be gender, that can be just worldviews. We have so many new Canadians coming to Calgary, which I think is amazing. And it's really diversifying our city. Mm-hmm. And everybody brings a different cultural nuance. And so much of how we interact with each other is how we were raised, like outside of even the hierarchy and who's the oldest one sits at the head of the table. And there's lots of cultural nuance here. Yeah. How does that play into all this? And maybe that's a whole other podcast.
Oh gosh, I think it is, but I think it's huge. And so I'll relate to an experience that I had. So when I was working at a large post-secondary here that we both know and love very well, I had the opportunity to travel to different countries and do a lot of work in different countries. In fact, 40 countries in about 4 years, and did a number of really big projects. And what it opened up my eyes to was just how diverse business culture is across the world, whether you're doing a project in Kazakhstan or Australia or China or whatever. And so I began to realize that diversity is actually a strength. And so when I came back and I started to teach again, what I really wanted to capitalize on in my teaching, particularly around leadership and strategy, was the diversity of thought and the diversity of ideas that different cultures can bring to the classroom. But it was interesting, and I'll share with you a story. When I started my class, I say to my class, please don't call me professor. I'm not a professor. Please don't call me sir. I'm not a sir. Gosh, that makes me feel old. I just want you to call me Rod. Please just call me Rod. And there were there were students that really struggled with that. And it was sir. And I said to one student, I said, tell me a little bit about, the compelling need to call me sir. And they shared with me, well, that's what we do back in our country. There's this reverence that's attached to an instructor in the post-secondary sector that you revere. And so you always call that person, professor or sir or mister or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I totally get it. We're going to break that down because that's not necessary here, right? For me, especially, right? And so, but I realized, hey, listen, they come from a place that they have their own experiences. And I think the beautiful thing about diversity and the conversation about diversity is for us being able to bring those experiences into the fabric of our organizations and into our community. And I truly believe in the importance of immigration as a global city, as a feeder for knowledge and diversity of thought and all those things that are important, and welcoming them to our cities. I think that diversity really, to me, whether it's diversity of culture, diversity of gender, diversity of thought, whatever it might be, that is a superpower for a community. And if we can tap into that, we can make our communities vibrant and strong. The challenge, I think, is how do we move that into a sense of belonging? How do we make our communities, our organizations, whatever it is, how do we make those people feel like they actually belong for who they are and they don't have to conform to some ideal of who we think they should be? And I think that's where diversity can be leveraged if we can create places of belonging where people feel like they actually belong here. And we recognize them for who they are, where they come from, what they can bring, and for their humanity. And I think that that's an area of opportunity. When we think about organizations today, that's an opportunity for us.
It's an area, I think, and as much as I don't want to say it out loud, we're not thriving in that. I think we're we're not doing, I've had conversations with a few
Yeah.
through the podcast where I was like, oh, such an inclusive city. They're like, yeah, not when you're on the outside of it, it's not.
No.
It is just exclusionary. And you're like, oh, it's so easy to think because I can call up Rod and I can call up Craig and I can call up all these contacts that I have and get an introduction or find a job opportunity because I have this community that I'm very fortunate to be on the inside of. But if you're on the outside of that, it is just as alienating as anywhere else.
100%. So true. We have a lot of work to do as a city and a lot of work to do as organizations in this city.
Oh, which starts with psychological safety, which starts with trust and being able to, whether it's, I don't feel comfortable because I might pronounce your name incorrectly, or I might, not understand your culture in a certain way, and just being vulnerable back to you and humble around that.
Yep.
It's a tricky balance because humans we're messy as F. That's my, there's another t-shirt. There's another t-shirt.
Love it. I'm going to use it.
We're so messy, but there's sometimes this illusion that we're not supposed to be, or this falsehood.
Yeah.
Like, really? I like when you give that permission, which is just psychological or emotional intelligence starts with self, right? Yeah. Do I give myself permission to be messy? No, I have to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
I have to have all the right answers.
Yeah.
Which leads to then you're not curious, you're not open, you don't put yourself out there, because if there's a risk of not being perfect, well, God, there's a good chance I'm not going to be perfect. So I'll just keep myself all locked up. It doesn't benefit anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that personal journey we're on of really that accountability and that journey as individuals. And so when it comes to thinking about organizations, like I always wrestle with this because, as a leader, as a peer, as a coworker, what's our responsibility as leaders, as management, as people that are intentional about creating the culture versus us as individual contributors. Let's just play that as like, I'm a leader, a manager, I'm an individual contributor, meaning I don't have anyone report to me, but I'm still on a team and I can still take lead on things, but I don't have a title.
Yeah.
What's that responsibility of like, I need you to make this comfortable for me versus I've got some responsibility to also kind of deal with my stuff, back to my messy as F, that goes, hey, how am I showing up? How am I, oh geez, I got triggered by something that maybe wasn't intentional at all, but yet I'm triggered and now it's someone else's responsibility to manage me. That feels like a really tricky balance that we're in right now in this world that we are currently living in.
Yeah, it's a great question, Tyler. And I think that the way that I would propose it back is that leadership isn't about a title. It's not about managing people. It's really about how you show up. What are the qualities and the competencies that you bring to work every single day? Because we all, in some ways, lead within an organization. Whether we lead formally a team of people, or we lead through influence, or we lead on a project, or whatever it might be. So it kind of comes down to leader as self, and I think. That's where it really begins, is knowing yourself as an employee and knowing yourself as a leader. And things like, emotional intelligence. Are you aware of yourself? Are you aware of what happens when those triggers happen to you? That self-awareness and self-management piece. Are you a builder of relationships within your organization, or do you tear those relationships down? Are you resilient in the organization? Are you seen as a go-to person that someone can handle this project because they've proven to be resilient and they can take it on? Do you continue to grow? Do you continue to invest in yourself as an employee so that you can show up to different situations and contribute to the organization? Because ultimately that's why you're there, regardless if your role is to contribute something of value to the organization. So I think it really begins with knowing yourself, and that's the foundation of leadership. Great. There's all these models and frameworks around leading, all these great authors that we read, John Maxwell, Patrick Lencioni, Simon Sinek, and they're all great stuff. But at the core of it is, do you know yourself as a potential leader of others and leader of processes within that organization? And can you contribute? Because ultimately, that's what we need to do, is contribute to the organization. And if you're promoted into a role, because in the classic is, just because you're the best salesperson doesn't mean you're going to be the best sales manager. It's a different skill set.
It often means you won't, actually.
100%.
It often is the exact opposite of what I think has been like, oh, you're good at making cabinets, you should run a cabinet making company. No, that is actually, those are two completely different skills.
Totally. But I do think it begins with self. And if there is a desire of leadership, let's say there is a desire of leading others in an organization, it's understanding the gaps that you would have right now and making sure that you're working on those gaps, whatever those gaps might be. There's tons of ways to look at doing that, and that's where a coach can really help. I mean, I work with people now who want to be C-suite executives, and so okay, let's work on that. What does that look like for you? Let's dig into that. And we work on a journey together. And at the core of it is them understanding themselves first before they can actually lead other people.
Well, it's really listening to you talk. We talk so much about personalization and what we all look for in an organization where we can have what we value. But with that comes the need for that personal accountability of like understanding who you are. It's hard. Like we get spoiled. I've used my phone as a reference. I have an algorithm that's figuring things out about me that I don't even know myself. At work, that's tough if you're expecting everyone around you to figure out the Rubik's Cube that is you. If you don't know what the hell it is, like it's the, you know, the joke, my buttons are big and easy to push. I just don't know where they are. Like, oh, you push my button. Whoa, why is that button keep getting pushed? Why am I participating in that?
How does that button different than the other button I had yesterday?
Yes. So I love, so it does come back to, at the end of the day, we are still a bunch of messy humans navigating the world. And in a work environment, we choose to do it as a group because we chose to participate. But how do we add value to that environment? And so much of that is who are we, and whatever role we happen to be in. This always breaks down to me of like, well, yeah, but what work are you doing about you? Forget all the frameworks and all the here's how to run a meeting successfully. If you're getting triggered by something that you don't quite understand, all the frameworks in the world of how to run successful meetings are not going to be successful, in my experience.
Very true. Very well said. Very well said. It starts with self.
And second, get a coach. Get a coach. Like if I look back in the years of being involved in executive groups, having peers, it's sometimes like having a friend who's educated on how to get the best out of you. Like sometimes that's just a friend, but oftentimes you need to put someone in that role because work is different than home and different than such. But we are the messy person that moves between it. And I think nothing better. And coaching is becoming so much more accessible to people. So
very true.
Quick, maybe last takeaway. How do you choose a coach? How do you go about finding someone? Because it is about fit, right? It's so much a personal journey. How do you go about finding a coach that's right for you?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what your needs are when you're thinking about what it is that you want to achieve. Because there's different types of coaches for sure, and there's a career coach that's going to help with the next role, and there's executive coaches that are going to help you succeed at the senior levels of organization. There's leadership coaches that focus on leadership. So it really is a little bit of self-reflection of what it is that you're looking to achieve. You may not have it clear yet, which is fine. But it could be, hey, look, I'm looking to I want to take on a new role. Or I want to be promoted. Can you help me with that? Or I really aspire to be this in my life. Or I'm really struggling with, integrating my work and my life together. How do I do that? I always say to people, find a coach that's certainly qualified. So a certified coach is, I think, really important. Someone who's got the theoretical educational background to do it. But I think I also would encourage people to look for the experience that the coach brings to the conversation. Now, in pure coaching, you don't necessarily share your experience, but it is an enhancement to the coaching relationship when that coachee is looking for some experiences you might have that might help inform them. And as an experienced coach, having sat in the top of the organization and in a C-suite role and worked with a board, that's an experience that I can bring to the conversation that I have when I'm having it with my coachee. And so I would look at both, making sure that they're qualified, number one, and number two, that they've got the experience that you need to be successful in what it is that you were trying to achieve as a potential coachee.
I appreciate that. And there's so many resources, and I'm seeing so many more organizations stewarding that and finding coaches and making that available. I think it is so important. But like you said, sometimes even as a manager, I'm not a certified coach, even though I'm coaching people that work under me in a certain way. Like it is all, I think leadership is good coaching, but also I think what you said is really respecting that there is a way and there's a discipline around it, and anyone can coach you on something, but there is a way to coach as well.
And that's what's foundational is there's tons of different models of coaching, and one of the ones that we're currently developing one, my wife and I in our practice, that is really what we call the coach approach to leadership development. And it is taking a coach approach as leaders, not necessarily meaning you need to be a certified coach to do the work. It's here's a framework that you can learn and follow as a leader as you're moving down the pathway of your own development as a leader, that you can ingrain as part of your approaches to how you work with your teams. And so I think there's lots of different models out there that people can tap into.
Yeah, if you're waiting to the annual review to sit down with your reports and your team, you're kind of missing the boat. Turn it into coaching, which looks a lot like regular conversations about what matters to the organization and what matters to them. Start by just calling it conversations if that's less scary.
You know what I say to people? I say to people that when someone says to me, "What's the number one thing that I can do to be a better leader?" And I say to people, it's very simple: just be genuinely, authentically curious. Just ask questions, right? So rather than saying, something like, well, why did you do it that way? It could be, hey, listen, I'm kind of curious. What was your reasoning for following the project that way, or doing it that way, or what was in the way of you being able to complete that outcome that we decided to complete by last night? Tell me a little bit more about that. What's going on? You really want to just build connection, and curiosity builds connection. So if I was to say to anybody who's interested in becoming a better leader, it is simply by being more curious, authentically, and genuinely curious about the people that you get to lead.
Mic drop. I feel like you've been eavesdropping on my keynote that I'm preparing for Jenny and Craig for the SATE event.
I'm going to
I love it. Your physiology changes when you even use the words, I'm curious. It changes versus, why the F did you do it that way? Versus, hey, I'm curious. Why the F did you do it that way? See, it even sounds different even if you say that.
Yeah, and it's genuine. It's genuine, right?
It's how real. I started down the road of going, hey, curiosity could be a thing. I just started by using it as the way to start a question. And that's how curiosity was my gateway drug to being more curious. Funny how that works.
Curiosity. That's another t-shirt. Curiosity is my gateway drug.
Hey, we have bumper stickers and t-shirts. We're going to have a whole thing. Rod, that was fabulous. I was really looking forward to it. You did not disappoint, my friend. Not that there was any risk of that ever. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? That was inspiring. I would want to get a hold of you if I hadn't already just chatted with you for an hour.
Oh, man. Well, listen, thanks again for this opportunity. I always love spending time with you. I enjoy these times so much. The easiest way is just on LinkedIn. Look up Rod Miller on LinkedIn. You'll find me there. You can send me an email, rod@devillepartners2ls.com is there. But other than that, LinkedIn's the way to go. I do a lot of work on LinkedIn, so I'd love to connect there.
Amazing. Rod, thanks so much for the conversation, and thanks for your shots and the work you do. That was really good, man. That was awesome.
Good, man. Appreciate it so much. Thanks so much.